Are worldwide pyramids the result of Atlantean architecture? Now, what causes this? We can't always see things like that with our own eyes, but they do come up in film. Some kind of an energy that we can't see the frequency with our eyes, but they do show up in film. Let's keep our remembering what the Giza Plateau looked like a little while ago. It was covered by sands, whereas the erosion showed that there was a lot of flooding that took place thousands of years ago. And then something happened, which was a devastation, a catastrophe that covered up this whole area, causing the Sphinx to be covered up to its neck in sand. Was it a flood? Was it some kind of a flood basalt or a volcanic eruption? What was it that caused this whole area to be covered with so much sand? Of course, it could have been the flood having to do with some kind of a tsunami from a volcanic eruption. And we don't know now. I'm not a geologist or an archaeologist, but I love this. And the more we talk about this era, the more we learn when we look into articles. Look at this pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Giza, having to do with the dimensions of the earth. How did they build all these things with all these? It's of course not coincidence that all these measurements just happen to be perfectly aligned with the dimensions of the earth, the way the alignment of the pyramids have to do with Orion's belt, some kind of an energy station. The fact that we have all these pyramids worldwide. This one was discovered recently in 1947, a cut-off pyramid in China. And again, there's a plateau of pyramids in China that have the same exact alignment that the Giza pyramids have with Orion's belt. And let's remember what we recently had found concerning ancient Greece, that all the cities of the Peloponnese are still today to be found located at the star positions of various constellations. What made the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, establish their cities at the exact star positions of various constellations? That to me is ridiculously out of this world. They must have had some reason to do that. And then we have the pyramid here, the pyramids we found have had granite tombs placed in the center of them, hundreds of tons of weight, and they could have been used for batteries to create energy, very strong energy to emanate from the pyramids, and somehow causing a free energy device for the whole community. This is one of the ancient pyramids of Greece and Corinth. I have not been there, but I should go, I guess, at one point. It's over 3,000, it's 5,000 years old, from 3000 BC. We shouldn't be surprised that the locals since then have been using the rocks and the stones to build their own structures. And this has to do with the energies, the Kirlian photograph showing the energies that a pyramid can create. We know that the ancient Greeks had knowledge of how to build temples over ley lines, how to use the Earth's magnetic frequencies, and the reason that they had columns in their temples in Greece was because of the fact that when you stand in between the columns emanate the energy, the positive energy from the ground, coming through the columns, and when people would pass the columns or even stand between the columns, they would have their bodily frequencies turn positive, and they would become healthier. So they had all this knowledge that we don't have today. And here's just another image again of how devastating this area was. You can imagine what went on here. Now, I have not found out if that sand has seashells. If it has seashells, it means that it was probably swept over by waves of some kind of a flood, of a devastating flood. Now we know that we have mountains of sand in Greece, are mountains that have beautiful pine tree forests. You know, the pine tree doesn't need to have that much of a soil for its roots to take hold. It can take hold. I mean, I had pine trees growing on the car windshield, between the windshield wipers and my windshield. That's how easy it is for little pine trees to start growing. They grow out of nowhere. And we found that when we were going to pilgrimage to various areas around Greece, that they had cut down the mountains to lay roads, and we were able to see the geology of these things when we stopped to park the car somewhere. And we found that you could chip away the soil with your car key. I mean, it was so soft. And we're talking about soil that they had cut down, and it's as if geologists would have cut a layer through a wall of rock, of sediment. And we said, this must have been, because we saw striations of sediment being laid, and we said, this must have been waves coming in and depositing various things, you know. Once it would deposit pollen, the other would deposit pebbles, the wave would deposit smaller rocks, and the other wave would deposit sand, and the other wave would deposit something else. And you say, what was going on here? And this is how the mountains of Greece, a lot of them, are constructed, by what seems to be waves of sand. And then you must have had rain or something that sort of made gullies and rivers and, you know, earthquakes and what was going on? Something was going on. But anyway, before that, we have records from the emerald tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean, and I have a video playlist. You can hear them there. What he says is amazing. They had air travel, they had interstellar travel, space travel, that is. They even knew how to go from one dimension to the other, sort of change their materialistic frequency to go from one dimension to the other. And they said that they were so haughty and selfish with their advanced technology that they were abusing humanity and our planet. And that's one reason why God did away with them. And that's also confirmed by the Old Testament Genesis, book of Genesis. Thoth, and just like Genesis says, the giants, the world of the renown, the giants of renown, they lived before the flood and also after that, and also after the flood. It's the same thing that is written in the Emerald Tablets, written by the Atlantean Thoth. He says some did escape, which means after the flood, after the Atlantis. I'm not saying Atlantis was during the Great Flood. It may have been. It may be one of the floods before that. But Atlanteans, he said, did escape and went all over the world and reestablished their communities, building with their high technology and building pyramids. He specifically talked about pyramids. And they also had spaceships. And Thoth says he has buried his spaceship under a sphinx in the plateau of pyramids. He did tell us that he had gone to Egypt. Thoth was one of the deities of Egypt. And at one point we also read that he had gone to another area somewhere in America. And I don't know if it's South America or North America, but he established another community in America. And he had hidden his spaceship under a sphinx. Okay? Now, these Atlanteans also lived very long lives, thousands of years. We remember that before the Great Flood, the forefathers, the patriarchs, lived for a very long time, for thousands of years as well. And then after the flood, their longevity started decreasing. But the Atlanteans lived all over the world, and there are those archaeologists, cosmologists, one of them being Manly P. Hall, and you'll find his lectures on YouTube. He says that a lot of these UFOs and things that we see around us could be Atlantean craft by Atlantean drones or Atlantean entities that are still around, hiding underneath. Thoth did tell us that underneath the Egyptian pyramids there are luxurious multi-level cities of thousands of rooms, and they said that they have been found under the Egyptian pyramids, and also the Saqqara pyramids. Thousands of rooms of luxurious underground dwellings, like an underground city. And the same thing in recently talked about in Latin America. In Peru, for example, there are archaeologists and people that take people on tours and explain to us that these entities were around since before the catastrophic event took place in our solar system, having to do with a change of the sun, the intensity of the sun. We know that in the flood and the deluge story with Noah, that there was no rainbow before the flood. Something happened to the earth that changed the sunlight over and the atmosphere of the earth. It was more intense after the flood, causing the possibility of rainbows. And you know what, you get a rainbow when you have the sunlight shining and you're standing between the sunlight and the rain, you get a rainbow from the sun shining from behind you. And this was not the case before the flood, which means that they had a dimmer sun or some kind of another. There are those that say we had a binary sun, and that binary was where the earth was closest to. Anyway, something happened that was a tremendous shock that supposedly also took away the atmosphere from Mars. And Mars doesn't have an atmosphere, but it does have supposedly the face and on Mars, on Cydonia, and the pyramids on Cydonia, aligned just like the pyramids on the Giza Plateau, aligned with Orion's belt. So what is going on? So that's my introduction to what's going on here with the Atlantean architecture worldwide. And this is on Humans Are Free by Alexander Light. He says, have you ever wondered why there are so many pyramids scattered across the globe? It doesn't matter where you look, from Asia, Europe, Africa, Americas. For a reason where we are unaware of, ancient cultures erected massive pyramids all around the globe. Why ancient civilizations built these massive monuments is one of the greatest mysteries archaeology has not been able to answer so far. And until today, we're still not sure how ancient man erected these pyramids, or nor are we sure what they were built for in the first place. Were these ancient structures tombs, as archaeologists suggest, or do pyramids have a hidden purpose, one that we still have not uncovered? We only know that there are thousands of pyramids all across the planet, and when you think about it, it's extremely interesting. Mainstream scholar claims that thousands of years ago, ancient cultures around the globe were not interconnected, meaning that people from the Americas were not in direct contact with people from Africa, Europe, or Asia. Well, that seems to be wrong. They must have been connected. Going back to this, for some reason, all of these ancient cultures decided to build massive pyramids, and most of them are eerily similar. How can we explain this? Did ancient cultures around the globe decide to build pyramids randomly? Or did they follow a particular pattern set by unknown culture that predates all ancient cultures known to history? Recently, researchers in Kazakhstan discovered the first pyramid in that part of the world, and it turns out that it predates the Egyptian pyramids by a staggering 1,000 years. This means that the ancient Egyptians were not the first pyramid-building civilization, and that pyramids existed long before the ancient Egyptians decided to erect them. Interestingly, the largest pyramid on the planet is not the Great Pyramid of Giza, as many believe. While the Great Pyramid of Egypt is one of the biggest pyramids on the planet, the truth is that there are other structures that are even larger and could even possibly be much older than the structures found in Egypt. We only have to take a look at Mexico, where we find the Great Pyramid of Cholula. And this massive ancient monument is the world's largest pyramid. In size, this pyramid is compared to 9 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Researchers have no idea who built this massive structure, but legend says it was erected by giants. could have been, for example, what we say are the Anunnaki, or the Atlanteans. But there are more fascinating ancient pyramids scattered across the globe. The massive pyramids in China are perhaps the most secretive structures on the surface of the planet. Little is known about these massive pyramids, which have been photographed numerous times by pilots overflying the region. The story behind the Great Pyramid of China is beyond fascinating. For years, the government has not allowed proper studies to be performed on the numerous pyramids near the city of Xi'an. Excursions that managed to sneak into the area where the pyramids are discovered numerous anomalies like metallic material which could not be identified by researchers. The pyramids of China are believed to be over 8,000 years old. If we travel all around the globe, we'll eventually stumble across Peru and the ancient pyramids of Caral. Around 5,000 years ago, ancient Peruvians settled at Caral and created the most advanced and oldest civilization in South America. Their knowledge in several sciences has left today's researchers perplexed and unable to answer the main mysteries behind the greatest South American civilization to develop independently. It's very likely that in history books you never read about these fascinating pyramids, let alone the civilization that is behind their construction. According to many experts, the pyramids of Caral are contemporary with Egyptian pyramids about 5,200 years ago. However, there are numerous other pyramids worthy of praise. We cannot look past the Bosnian pyramids located at Visoko in Bosnia, Herzegovina, which have been dated among experts ever since Dr. Sam Osmanagic discovered the pyramids. Dr. Samir Omanjic and his team have spent over 340,000 man-hours in archaeological excavation, sample testing, and radiocarbon dating in the period from 2005 to 2013. The Pyramid of the Sun, with its 220 meters height, exceed the Great Pyramid of Egypt, which measures 147 meters in height. But what we find mind-blowing is the fact that the pyramid's orientation to the north is accurate with an error of 0 degrees, 0 minutes, and 12 seconds. Incredible precision, and this is where the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun has an amazing fact in common with the Great Pyramid of Egypt. We also have to mention the Pyramid of Gunung Padang, which according to many is the largest and oldest pyramid of the planet. Numerous researchers argue that Gunung Padang is the ultimate evidence which points towards a highly sophisticated, previously unknown civilization inhabiting the area, and much of this ancient and controversial history is being challenged in every possible way by mainstream researchers. Analysis of core samples of Gunung Padang reveal incredible dates. The deeper researchers look, the deeper the mystery gets. The site was believed to date back at least 5,000 years, and then 8,000 years to 10,000 years, and eventually to a reported age of 23,000 years. This means that Gunung Padang is not only the oldest megalithic site on the planet, it's also the oldest pyramidal-shaped structure known to mankind. And as you can see, different cultures from different periods in history built pyramids all around the globe. Regrettably, researchers have not been able to answer the most important question about these magnificent structures. Why pyramids? Why didn't ancient cultures around the globe decide to build these fascinating structures? Why did they decide to build them? And why are so many pyramids eerily similar? And better yet, why are all these thousands of pyramids of different shapes and sizes? Did all of the pyramids around the globe come into existence because coincidentally all ancient cultures had similar ideas? Or is it possible that all ancient cultures, like the ancient Egyptians, the Maya, Aztecs, Inca, Tiahuanaco, and others, follow a predefined pattern set into place by a civilization that predates all of these ancient civilizations? What if pyramids around the globe are in fact the result of Atlantean architecture? Or if you're among those who believe that Atlantis never existed, what if pyramids are the product of Atlantean-like ancient civilization that set into place thousands of years ago, before written history, patterns on how and why pyramids were to be built around the globe? It's really hard to imagine that all of the above-mentioned ancient civilizations decided to build pyramids randomly. This is by Ivan and Son, Humans Are Free, by Alexander Light. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.